What do you say, guys and gals? We are back for another episode of What's in My Drawers at McGOLF. I know Robin's listening, so she can actually let the other dog out. And I'm going to tell her this way, too. Okay, so how was the weekend? Matt, what's going on? Did you shoot in the 60s again? I'm getting into the 40s. I got into the 44, 44. So we're getting closer. We are truly getting closer. It's got to take out some of the dumb holes. So that's pretty good. And we got Heartlings on. And Mediocre Golf. Well done, guys. Thank you for showing up. So, who'd we see? Did anybody watch any of the golf with no fans? Did anybody watch? I got to say, I watched about 2 holes, and that was about the end of it. There was some really good golf being played. It just I didn't have time to watch. Russ, what's going on? And there was some really good golf being played, and there were some powerhouse players playing. And it was really interesting to see. It was first time out. And congratulations to Daniel Berger for winning. Apparently, he was tied with another cat and ended up winning must have been a playoff. So very well done. It's a good one right out of the box. Some interesting stuff. If the play keeps like it is, we're going to see some really cool showdowns when it gets out there. So when you guys watch, what did you guys think? Let's see what you got. Harling watch, what do you think? Bryce, yeah. You know, they were keying up on Bryson pretty good. He was hitting it. He was hitting it very, very well. He was putting it out there. He was being a machine. I think he was finally getting used to the muscle mass that he put on. So that was always really good. And he always gets attention when he does well because, because he's different, right? And every time he's doing well and doing different, he does pretty good. So, or he gets all that attention. So that's not too bad at all. All right. So do we notice any of the social media out there with Gary Woodland? Yeah, you know what? Yay! Go and get in a hole or that other crap that people, I can do without that too. The social media and some of the stuff, there was some real big news. Gary Woodland had a Wilson driver in play, and I guess he was doing pretty good. It looks to be a new one. I don't have anything on it as of yet, but the social media was quite on fire about it. An all-black kind of golf club. It looked pretty mean. And if Woodland's put it in play and he's actually doing that well, that guy pounds the ball pretty good. So maybe we'll see a driver type entry that will get people's attention other than just the irons, right? Other than just the irons. So that was pretty cool. I wanted to go over a couple of things. I was getting a lot of questions this week on some repairs. Okay, we'll start with the repairs first. So if I do this here. Hey, how about that? Golf club repair. A young man sent me a question on dealing with the bore throughs with the old Callaway clubs, very much like that guy. Notice it's an 8 degree because that was a common thing. This was from my powder coating days, and I powder coated this guy just to see if I could do it. And the thing is, it comes with the face. And if you can see, I put some green stripes because white and green were a thing back in the day. So it wasn't too bad. And it's very hard. It's very hard. So anyway, somebody was watching me do one of the bore throughs on another video, and had really mucked up the shaft. Well, if you're replacing the shaft and you don't need it, I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, we all know that this is a flat spot right here, and it can get stuck quite easily. Okay, it can get stuck quite easily on the pole if you don't if you don't pull it out all the way. Okay, and if you don't keep a consistent tension on the pole, and then if it doesn't, if it's broke off, well, then you just run the drill right through it, and you're good to go. Now, the important part about this is once you get it out is actually cleaning this out, because it has a shoulder there and it goes all the way through. Now, there's two methods of making this work. The first one is when you get the shaft put through there, that it's going to stick out an amount. And what you can do is you can take a Sharpie and go all the way around the shaft, and then you can pull it back out, and then you can sand it along that Sharpie line. And then when you go to install it, then you can make it fit. Okay. It may not be exact, but if you don't have all those tools, it's better than nothing. And then if you really wanted to, you could gently sand, just go like that, gently sand it and get it to gear where you need it to be. Now there's a tip pin that goes in there, and you got to go through that same area. Once you get it in there and the glue's dried, you just saw it off with a little back saw, and you do a little sanding and there. Now, to give it the more professional look, where it looks, because this is all, I made this shiny on purpose, okay? But it had the satiny finish on it, right? This was all blue at one time, and this was a satiny finish. What you would do is you would let it stick through, and you would put it on the sander, and you would sand it with the grain, with the tip pin that's already sanded or already in it, and you cut off until you sand it nice and flat, and it gives it that look that everybody's looking for. And then you would sand all these areas all the way down to this tip, and then wipe it down, and voila, here you are. Now the other trick here is right inside here, they had the old Callaway one just looked like it was an O-ring. Well, that was actually a ferrule that had a shoulder on it, and it would sit in there. It was a specially made ferrule. They're not made anymore. So they have square ones, but what I would recommend if you really, really wanted it to play is they have a 1/4-inch ferrule, and it sticks up about that far, and it protects, because this is the weak spot of this club. And that's the reason why you see ferrules on most of the stuff now from Callaway. And what you would do is you put that 1/4-inch on there, and you make it fit to the side, and voila, you're done. But so if anybody was asking about that, there you are. And that was the repair for an older Callaway bore through. Okay, an older Callaway bore through. And that was one of the very most interesting repairs for the week. We had nothing really outrageous per se, just typical extensions, and we had one broken shaft, and that was a repair. I've done that on a couple of the videos. It was neat in the fact that it was a tailor-made, and the screw normally doesn't go through, but on this one it did, and I caught it, so it was pretty cool. All right. We're going to go back here and look. So the last thing was on the fitting front. Let's do that on the fitting front. There we go. On the fitting front, we were honored to have some folks from North Carolina come up here and get fit this last week. In fact, yesterday. And one gentleman plays to a 2 handicap. Another one plays very, very close. One was an ex-Submariner, so it was fun. And it was and one of the in-laws was there. And so it was really kind of neat to see the very different swings, right? Everybody had a different swing. Was a younger guy, and he bent down and he swung really fast, but accuracy was lacking. The 2 handicap brought it back about, I'd say, right at that 3/4 line, and was dead solid on every time, always with the finish. The other fellow was a little less in the backswing, but had a lot more power going through. and it was neat to see that you can take them all through the same process and end up in different directions. And you think, well, obviously, man, a couple guys are old, one's young. Well, not necessarily. That's the point, because what you had was the younger fella. I ended up putting him in a Mizuno H&Bs with a fairly decent shaft. Turns out the 2 handicap, I put in the same set of iron heads, but a much softer shaft, and he was still throwing it out there. He's throwing a 7-iron out pretty far, or 6-iron out pretty far. And then the other gentleman had a set of new levels, and Eric did a very fine job on taking care of him over the phone, but he was wanting a little more precision in his hits. And we did a real quick fitting, and we ended up throwing him. We took out the Tour 90s and put him into some dollar taper lights, and his dispersion pattern goes from this to that, which is exactly what he was looking for. And he gained maybe just a couple of yards. It really wasn't worth going, hey, he gained a bunch of yards. He didn't, but he gained some yards, but now the pattern's like that, and that was exactly what he was looking for. The other tip I will give you guys before we go on to questions is that the younger man, that he broke down, and it was more like buggy whipping it. We call them buggy whipping, where when you bring the hands back and they do like this, and then they throw out and they buggy whip and they bring them around. Counterbalancing is quite a trick you can do. So if you're out there and you can't make it to me, sometimes, again, every golfer is a little different, but counterbalancing. So I put a big old weight in the back of this thing, and the quality of hit jumped up about 6 or 7 points, and it went from dispersions this way to in the middle. Now, it wasn't super duper tight, but it went from being way here and then overcorrect away here to within a playing field. So now he's playing well, at least in the short grass of the first cut versus 2 time zones over. So that it's not a bad little setup, and that's what we really like seeing. The other one was, and I will tell you this, on putters, right? From a fitting perspective, I'm now a certified level 2 Capto guy. So we're going to use the Capto a little more frequently because it does give a lot of information. We'll see some videos on that probably in about a month or so. Now, what we did with him, this guy had the 2 handicap had a stroke that belonged on tour, but he just kept missing to the right. Well, we did our measurement, took him through a process, and found out that his club was about 2.5 degrees flat. And the minute that we made it the correct way, that it's right, he's pouring it down the middle. Same thing happened with the younger man, is that we had to, he liked choking down, which was fine. And so we made a little mark for him to choke down, and then we had to bend his just the other way in order for him not to catch the heel so much, and start pouring it in. So when they talk about, lie angle is not that important on low lofted clubs, in irons that would be true, but in putters, when you're looking at it and you're standing over the ball and you got time to think, lie angle becomes a thing. Okay, lie angle really, really becomes a thing. So that's the little tips and trips of the day. So if we got more, let's go into asking. All right. Yeah, Morikawa, he just didn't have 2 putts. Okay. We're talking about the Wilson driver. It did look cool, didn't it? It looked mean, which has been that's been a thing for Wilson. Their technology has been in there for sure, but their cosmetics have always been suspect at best. And since John Pergande's got in there, they've really, really upped their game with it. And this new black one, I think they're going to get a lot of business with that one. All right. You think? I didn't get to see the top. I thought the bottom didn't look too bad. But I didn't get to see the top to see if it had some of those fins or whatever Ping's been doing lately. From the UK, Mr. Oliver, thank you for watching. I have not read The Golfing Machine. I do know about it. and the approach that the guy's taken, and I know Bryson is quite the scientist about it. But I do know about it. There's some people that will say don't read it; it'll mess you up for life, and there's some people read it because you will really enjoy it from a technology on the swing issue. Come on, man! The club won't be lefty. We're gonna have to do a little phone call and talk to those guys. Okay, here we go. D's back. He says, without expensive tooling measuring devices, what's the best way to measure wood lofts? Well, if you can hold them in its normal playing position, a protractor. Okay, a protractor or if you in carpentry, you've seen those things that open up like that, and then they measure loft. So you put one on flat, and then you put this one on the face angle as the club is sitting there. Now they do have smaller ones. They do have smaller ones where they'll just look like that, and they'll go into the head, and they'll sit in there like that. And you got to just make sure this is at 90, and then when this comes down, you'll be able to see it. And they're fairly inexpensive, but anything that can measure an angle is pretty much where you're at. So you can get away with that. Kevin is checking in from Scotland. Kevin, we were having very enjoyable discussions about Scotland, and a couple of folks that have come in that we fit have actually been there. And there was another gentleman, one of the two that I was telling you about, has a trip planned with his father and some really good buddies, and then the COVID thing hit, so they've been delayed. And of course, in true touristy fashion, they said, well, we won't give you back your money, but we'll just send you back into a different time slot. And I don't know if there was anything special about his time that he had to go or not, but I guess they're planning on going. So good for them. I'm sure they'll enjoy it, because we went there and it was thoroughly enjoyable, and to the point we'd love to do it again. Yep, I missed one. There we go. My buddy's nephew was a tour caddy for Tim Simpson. Remember the 90s? There you go. That is to say something, because that was the era that gave, as the Callaway became the number one, it was, because you had Titleist was certainly known for their thing. Callaway was known for their thing, and TaylorMade was trying to get in there with it. And that's an important piece of golf history, to be honest. London, nice, well done. Okay, let's keep going down. Here we go. Newbie just started out. I've gone to the range about a half a dozen times so far. Dude, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Okay, I'm glad that you are enjoying it. So, it's even for a newbie getting started out, and it's kind of odd coming from a club maker, club fitter, but the best thing you can do, if you can, is go get a lesson. Go get a lesson from a certified professional. Go get a lesson from somebody that's trained in giving lessons, right? Somebody that's trained in giving a lesson, and that way you can just learn some of the basics and have a good building block, instead of listening to your buddies that are about 5 seconds older than you are in the way of golf. It will pay so much in the way of dividends that it will be scary how much better that can be. To the point, another fellow that I fit, he came in and he is an instructor, and the guy the golf bug has bit him, and he's been to him 2 or 3 times, and went out with his buddies, because they're the ones that talked him into golfing, and he beat him, and with just 3 lessons, and they're trying to tell him what to do, and he's just ignoring them, and he's slaying them. So, if nothing else, just one. If you like it, get a couple, and then you can move up. All right, Russ. Nice, Russ. The new Srixon iron and wedges. The Srixon makes a good product. They really, really do. Uh, Again, I think they're in that same category with Wilson in that they need a defining driver. Uh, Nobody, I don't think anybody doubts them in their irons and their wedges. They just need that defining driver and maybe a really outstanding hybrid. And when they first started, they did had the hybrid. The driver was so, and but they just need somebody to really, really, uh, really get with the driver program. Here's a new one. Good morning from Australia. Thank you, sir. Assuming Dusky is a sir. But thank you guys for tuning in. Please, please, please. And Canada, look at that. We are killing it right now. Well done. All right. And I'm glad that Russ likes them because, well, we made them. Nicely done. Oh, here's one from Matt. Matt hasn't asked one for a while. There we go. Can you speak to the changes in putters and their technologies? Can older putters compare? Matt, good question. Excellent question, as a matter of fact. Okay, starting from the beginning, Ping came out with the Anser, okay? And the Anser became the Anser because he didn't have enough room to put the W in for the answer. And it was the wife's idea to become the Anser, and the rest is history. And everybody on the planet has done a remake of the same thing. Now, can they improve on it? The answer to that in a most complete answer is yes. But the amount of improvement is truly where the answer or the question really lies. Can you make it more forgiving? Yeah. How much? 1%, 10%, what? In anything golf, you get up around 2 or 3%. That's pretty much you're maxing out your addition to something that's already been designed, unless it was just bad. All right. And the Anser has been a staple since the beginning. Then comes the mallet. And the mallet was for those guys that couldn't see the line, wanted something bigger, and face balancing came out because the Anser had what was called toe hang. And it was the amount of toe hang. You had 3/4, 2/3, half, quarter, and then you had face balance. And face balance was really the realm of mallets, right? And center shafted blades. And that was the realm of them because it was always back and forth was the face balance stroke, which we find that is no longer true, right? And then from there, inserts started showing up in the different metals. So you got cast clubs versus milled clubs. And which one's better? Well, which one fits? All right. Now, some metal, now what you're talking is some metal feels different than others. So, I mean, look, Scotty Cameron feels different than a Toulon. A Toulon feels different than now a Mizuno. A Mizuno feels different than a Peretti. And it's all in the milling techniques, the types of metals that are using, and for that matter, a Bettinardi, and some of the heat treating processes that go through it. Then you have the other clubs that are cast into similar shapes or even unique shapes that have inserts in them. Odyssey being probably the primary driver for that. And as you change those inserts, you change that feel, and you can get different results from the same club. And so there goes that one. Well, and now they're milling clubs to look like some of the cast ones. And the biggest thing I've seen that's been the addition, that's been a true upward plus for a golfer, is the addition of weights. Okay, there's two things, but the first one is weights. Where weights in the underneath side, so you not necessarily to help you get like this, but to help you get a better feel. Case in point, we did a Mizuno here. We put an LA putter shaft in it, and we ended up lightening it up, meaning it comes with a kit. The Mizuno comes with a kit. It has 3s, 8s, and 12s in it as weight kits. 8s are installed. We took those out and put the 3s in it, in order for the person to enjoy the putter better. So you can adjust, and so not only you're keeping the MOI might change a little bit because of the weight that's on the end, maybe, and it would, but not as significant as you think. But now it's in a feel that the person likes and can controls, makes a more confident stroke. Life's better as opposed to it being heavier and having to work it over. That's one. Two is in the shaft. We've all been seeing stuff about the shaft, right? The stability shaft, the Stroke Lab shaft. There's probably going to be one or two shafts. I think KBS is going to come out one. The UST used to have one. And they're all trying to get to the same place in a different way, in that the heads have been getting heavier because the greens have been getting more manicured and faster. And so because they're trying to be faster, they're slowing the heads down. Or they're trying to slow your stroke down, and they do that with weight. Oh, give me a minute. Pardon me. And they do that with weight. And now they didn't change the shaft, so you're getting a little bit of wobble in the shaft. So what did they do? They really firmed up that section of the shaft so you didn't get a lot of feel. Well, in order to do that, that created a lot of weight down at the end, so they had to balance it at the backside. So you're seeing this distribution of weight, albeit either a combination of metal and graphite or a metal with metal and then some graphite with some inserts in them and stuff like that. There's the difference is pretty striking, honestly. And even Acura now they've got 4 different kinds of shafts for 4 different kinds of feels. And so you can really start to fine tune putters. And we all know that we need them twice a round or twice a hole. Once if we golf like Matt. And so it's really, there's a lot to be had. Now, can you take an older Ping and make it as good as a newer one? Well, yeah, I would think you could, because now removing that Ping with the ball bearing in the bottom might be a bit of a trick, but as far as getting it to feel, it needs to feel heavier, right? It needs to feel heavier. So you need something that will be really bottom heavy in the shaft, maybe like a Stroke Lab, in order to get that feel down there. You really got to get that feel down there. Now, if you're a guy that just enjoys this sledgehammer kind of a putter, and you've got one of those Pings that's at a 223 to a 240, no. You just have to add all these kinds of lead tape. Just go get yourself a heavier Ping-like putter and do that. But Matt, that was a great question. Hopefully I answered that. All right. Yeah, Chandler. Wish we could get everything done. I believe we owe you some wedges if we're not mistaken, but the shafts haven't come in. Turnberry, Scotland. Well done. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for coming in and watching. Now, this is a great question here. At what age or height can you fit a child into a golf club that actually play rather than the toy kits? Now, let's break this down. Okay, a little bit of realism. Okay, so kids grow at a phenomenal rate, and it's not like buying a club for you and I. And so the golf clubs, either mom or dad, need to be very, very aware that if you start at a younger age, you're just going to be buying more and more and more golf clubs, or modifying more and more golf clubs as the child grows. Okay. So there's that perspective. So there's a dollar and cents perspective over here. The second one is there's two things in which I qualify whether or not we really want to do this. One is the aptitude, and the other one is the attitude. All right, and those both are very, very important when you're doing something like this. The aptitude is the skill set, right? That they get in there and they really, really are good ball strikers, and that they can handle themselves going around the course as opposed to using those fungo clubs. The other one is the attitude, and the attitude is that they really, and they don't have to be mature, what I mean, but the attitude is, I really love golf. That is my thing. Like kids like playing baseball, or they like playing football, or they like playing soccer, or they like playing cricket, since I'm talking to the UK, or they like playing any other sport. Kids just love playing some of those games, and they do that. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of your time as moms and dads, and then mine. But what I would say, the most bang for your buck is depending on how, depending on their, again, aptitude and attitude. I am somewhere around 12, 13 years old. All right. 12, 13 years old will pay huge dividends, right? They'll pay huge dividends with properly fit set. Now, this is for a kid that has a pretty good swing, that plays golf very regularly, in order not to develop bad habits, right? The one of the biggest things that happens is Junior wants to go play golf, and Dad cuts down his clubs that are extraordinarily heavy, and now they're extraordinarily, and they're too stiff for the junior golfer, and they develop these bad swing habits based on, hey, John Daly being he was successful at it, but the swing that he has is based on that very thing happening. Okay. Now he hits the ball a ton, but he's kind of erratic as well. So, but right around 12 or 13. Now, if being fit into a golf club, some club companies make what I call tweener sets. And what I mean by that is they're not youth clubs, but they're not quite adult clubs. They are made for kids that are 12, beginning teenagers, 12 to 14. So they are lighter in weight. They're maybe slightly lighter in flex, and they come in a kit. And you can do something like that if you're still building up on the skill sets. But I've had kids as young as 7 in here that were phenomenal golfers. And, I don't have anything set to 7-year-olds because of their height, but we can, use you might even be able to use a regular head with just a super kid's shaft, and then find those very small grips. But that's a once in a 20-year kind of thing, but on the average between 12 and 13. Okay. Geez, Mrs. McGOLF is talking to people. That's good. All right. Had an iron fitting with a club maker in Erie. Very interesting results. Looks like new irons in my future, but I'm convinced that fitting was the only way to go. Otherwise, it's potluck or worse. Craig, you are correct, sir. All right. If nothing else, I wish I could. Everybody tries to sell fitting as that's the way to go, blah, 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 and all these benefits. But in reality, it's probably one of the best cost-saving expenses that you will probably ever come across, in that, once you go through it, whatever it is that you paid for it, that's money well spent. And the fact it's probably going to save you in being able to go buy what you need, and that's a huge savings. So we're pretty good. There's Scott. Yes, it's coming tomorrow, brother. Hopefully you got your weights ready to go, because all you do is weight them and grip them, and you are dead ready to go. They came out wonderful. I'm totally psyched about you playing well with them. So I'm ready to see some of that. I had some buddies that were playing at the Stone Lick on Sunday. They invited me. And I said, no, I can't, because, Scott hasn't invited me yet. So, yeah, let me know how they work. I'm totally interested to hear this one, because this is different. Okay, we got to go back up. Kevin's got a question. Fitted a Dynamic Gold SLR 300 shaft to a set of Ping I2s. I currently game Ping I200s with XL stiff shafts. They play almost exactly the same. It doesn't look like much has changed in 30 plus years. Well, the funny part is the Dynamic Gold SL300 was probably the beginning of what you see in the XLs and the 95 XLs and that kind of stuff. And and it's funny how that works out that way. But I will say that the Dynamic Gold R300s and the XL Stiffs are different profiles, where the Dynamic Gold RSL is way more stiffer in the butt than the XL shaft. And this is assuming it's the one I'm thinking of. And so the stiff shafts, when you frequency them because they're soft in the butt, will probably feel a little bit more like ours. That's a guess. And if you went from Ping I2s to Ping I200s, hopefully you gained a club. The Ping I2s, man, nobody can get around those for some reason once they get them. Another Scotland. Thank you, Joe, for looking, or actually showing up. Thanks for asking a question. Best place to put lead tape on a driver to help a slice. So now that I've got my demo head here, somewhere in this area here, right? So just behind the shaft, back in this area, in this particular area right here. Let me get. There you go. Right in this particular area. The idea is the more closer you get it to the shaft, that it will want to throw it that way. And the closer you can get it in this towards the front is good because it's also a spin reducer. So try some of that and see what happens. And another one from Scotland. Man, we're hitting it with the Scotland things. I'm digging on that. That's pretty cool. All right. Here we go. YouTube channel did it where I compared a long iron to a hybrid shaft and found the iron spun less than the hybrid. Do you know why that might be? Well, it could be a couple of things. It depends on lofts and the way that and the way that you attack the ball. Sometimes you will hit with a down angle with an iron, or the other way around. You might be trying to scoop up the iron and hitting down with a hybrid shaft. It also could be the type of iron that it was. And this is assuming that you're using the same shaft. That's always a possibility, and how you get it in there. But, loft being the biggest thing. Todd, that's a good question. How does a wedge fitting different from an iron fitting? Well, in reality, they're very, very close to one another. The difference is that you will take into account more on where you play and how you play wedges, which is a different game than playing in the irons, right? Length and lie angle are, especially lie angle, is paramount to a really good wedge, where you can be off maybe a little bit in the upper irons. So there's a little difference. The other one is the types of sole grinds. Bounce for certain is very important in wedges, where in irons they typically are lower. So having the right wedge bounce is also critical on where you play. And the two final pieces is total weight of the wedge, and then the sole grind. How much heel and toe relief, if any, do you need based on how you play and where you play? So that's the difference. That would be the difference. Now, there are more wedge shafts entering into the market than basically ever before. So you can really, if you're really a short game kind of guy, you could really fine tune a wedge or wedges, which is what we've been doing here lately. Because of, let's say, we'll just use the fitting from yesterday. H&Bs only go down to the pitching wedge, so we know now that we need gap wedges, and In one instance, the gap wedge is going to be a regular club in swing, and in another one, it's going to be more of a finesse club, half swings, that kind of stuff. So the type of shaft that we put into it are totally two different kinds. We stay with the irons with the regular one, and then we go maybe into a more of a wedge shaft for a control height or spin, depending on what the person's looking for, into the wedge in order to make that happen. Now, and you've got that settled in, and then you're into the sand wedges, which now become finesse type shots for both guys. Now, are you heavier with one and not with the other, or do you keep going? And it just depends on the golfer. So there is a real feel to it, right? There is a really, really feel to it. And yes, Scott, she's telling you the truth. Steel's mediocre golfer wants to know steel in hybrid in hybrid clubs. I've done it in the past, and at certainly on protest, and only because they make the club so heavy. Because the clubs are longer, right? They're like 40 inches at the tall end, maybe 41 on some cases, and it just makes the club so heavy. Now you can use the extra light shafts, but then if you're more of a guy that uses standard weight, then these things are going to be as heavy. They're going to feel heavy just like your wedges. Chances are, people are doing that because they say I don't have enough control in the club, and that extra weight will make them control. Chances are the length isn't right. Okay, and we're seeing that now. We're seeing that now, in that hybrids are starting to sneak up in length, just like drivers are. And that, guys and gals, that just can't happen. All right, a length for you is the length for you, regardless of what you're putting it in there. And so you might want to have them, if they're struggling with a little bit of control, chances are that means their quality of their shot's not very good. You might find out initially that it's too long. Or in the other, at the extreme at the other end, it might actually be too short. And so that you really need to investigate that parameter first, and then you can go in there. I think what we're really starting to see now is a speciality, like what they're putting into the driving irons, that those types of shafts are coming out, and they should help you. Oh, the Phantom. All right, so I've only had one in the shop, and it was neat looking. I will have to say, I will have to also qualify myself as I'm not a big Scotty fan. I am kind of a traditionalist in this favor, in that I like the old Circus series. Okay, I like the whole entire line. I like the fact that it was black. I like the Herbie Lovebug kind of straight, the yellow lines. Just some of my favorite looks. And if you take those lines that he had in the Circus 62, he's just slightly modified each one of those going forward into some of the current lines. But the feel on those things were just outstandingly nice. Okay, they were very, very good. Now, the Phantom is kind of a result of him being accused of being a copier, and more power to him for trying to do something different. However, the thing is, some guys really like that monster sight line, and if you do, then it's a great club. If you're a guy that's a little bit more, whose attention is grabbed to it and you just can't get away from it, and it's really distracting you, then it's not a very good putter. But I mean, he doesn't, like most clubs, most big companies, they don't make junk. It just might be something that's just not for you. Okay. Kaylin. There we go. A couple years ago, you built a set of JPX EZs with Nippon 850s, made 2-part video. If you're staying in the same line, right now, the JPX 919 hot metals are the way to go. All right. The Nippons with the 850s are very, very light. If you are still staying in that range, they do have I think it's a combination of a graphite weave over some metal, or some metal intertwined with a graphite weave that is still light like that you could use. For 10 more grams, you might be able to be better off with their 950 and use that. But that would be the next step up from the EZs into what's currently available. It would be the hot metals. Now, of course, the EZs came in different models as well. So if you had one that was a little bit less offset, then they have a Hot Metal Pro, and you might want to use that as well. So that's what you can do. How do you feel about peering a shaft for a high single-digit handicapper? Well, at any rate, any way to make a club more consistent can't be bad, no matter what type of golfer you are. All right, it's more of a bang for buck, and we've addressed this question a couple of times. But the reality of it is that I've got guys that have had shafts pured and will come and are disappointed in the fact that they personally could not tell. I've had other guys come in and think it's the second coming of building a club. Okay. Okay. So the peering of the shaft. So there's some guys that are the second coming, and there's such a delay. Robin's listening to me on YouTube. Okay, so the peering of the other side where they think it's the second coming of a golf shaft, and so it really, what you probably would be smart to do is have one done. Go get a 7-iron done, or a 7-iron or a 6-iron. Don't go lower, and go to the top end, because at the top end is where it's really going to shine. And have somebody pure it or spine and flow and put it back together and see if it works for you. And if it does, then boom, you're in there. Now, pardon me, again, on the tour, they have this ability on there, and there are some guys that won't play a club that hasn't been done, and there are some that wouldn't even give a second thought to it. Okay. Oh, you are welcome, sir. Here we go. Okay. Used set is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with used golf clubs. In fact, it's a very large business section of the golf industry. I would say have at it, particularly if you're just getting started. And again, after going through that lesson, to get some recommendations from the instructor is getting a good started set of clubs and see. And I would do that. Now, I have a very, very strong opinion on the next part of this. Look for clones. Absolutely not. All right. Now, clones, what I mean by clones is that these are identical type copies. So if you have a Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist, doesn't matter, and you have one that says Callaway, TaylorMade, or Titleist, and it's a total clone, it's junk, right? I know somebody's going to come up here and go, "Oh, I hit one. I got one, and it hits great." Well, you're one out of a million, man, because they don't use the same kind of metals. The shafts are junk. The whole thing is junk. Now, they have these imitation ones. Sorry about that. They have these imitation ones. Imitation's kind of a different one. I call them OEDs, original equipment designs. And the ones, Hyrico is a good one with that one, or probably the biggest one right now. They're the ones that look like other ones. They have a similar shape, and that's where it ends. Okay, is it like the club that you've seen? No, but it's similar, right? And they stay out of the way of the word clone. Now, there are other options out there as well, like GolfWorks sells their own design, and you can buy pieces, parts, and actually put them together. The Hyrico does the same thing. Used to be, I'm thinking that there's somebody in the UK that does. Oh, Diamond Tour. Look up Diamond Tour in the UK. They have a school and they have the way of getting through it, and they might be able to help you out with some of your other if you're wanting to get more hands on, and you do good with that. And those guys, those guys do a really, really good job of producing good equipment. Unfortunately, they don't get the press that they deserve, mostly because of marketing. All right. Mr. Willard, thank you for coming on. Cut it down to 43.5. Well, that works for a lot of people. And what we try to do in our driver fittings is it's all about quality of hit. It's not about the length of the club in the length itself, but it's in the quality of the hit. If you can find the middle of that club face, regardless of the length, you're not going to lose. You're going to probably gain more than you lose. Sort of neck style for someone who pulls putts. Well, if everything is created equal, and the length and everything is correct, someone who pulls a putt is probably, I would go something with less of a neck, maybe just inserted into the club. That's in order to have the hands not so far forward. All right. Boom. So we look at that. I got down to the bottom with 9 minutes to spare. That never happens. But so we'll stay with the putting. So putting is for a pull, it could be that the bottom hand is gripping the putter extraordinarily tight. All right. To know that's going on, I learned this from an instructor in the UK, is that with both hands, just grab it as tight as you can, death grip that putter, and then putt, and see if it still pulls. All right, and give it one or two shots, and if it's not pulling, it's because that bottom hand, whichever one is your bottom hand, right, is gripping it too tightly, and it's causing this, right? That's happening. The twisting close is happening. Now that's a very simplified way of finding it, but that could be it. It could be that you have a severe toe hang putter, and you might be more of a back and forth, very slight, with a slight arc, and that thing is just overriding you, and it's slinging you closed, and that could be an issue. It also could, in the whole gripping of the putter tight, could be that the grip is small, or again, it could be the other. Sometimes the grip has been too big, and you're just not comfortable with it. So there's one thing to take of that. Hey, he's back. Well done, man. Here we go. Do you think the modern stiff shafts are lighter than those produced 10 years ago? Well, Camilio, yeah. Anyway, the modern stiff shafts, that's kind of a misnomer in that the dynamic, let's say 10 years ago, dynamic golds were still in vogue and they were being played. And you see the S100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, that kind of thing. All that means is weight sorting, right? And so that it might be 123, 124, 125, 126 in what they look at it, but they're all in the S flex. So they're all in that grams. Well, it's 10 years later and it's still the same thing. So that particular model, no, it has not changed. Now, there has been technology applied that you can make stiff shafts that are lighter, and hence we'll use we'll just stay with DG. DG makes a 110 shaft on very much the same profile. It is also stiff, but it's just 110. KBS makes a 105 version of their what would be their flagship, their tour shaft, and it's a 105. And then you can get down as low as the 95 gram shafts, and as we were talking with Nippon in the 80s, and then you start getting into some exotic combinations. They're all stiff, but then the profile starts changing, and so you have to be kind of very careful on the type of golfer that you are as to the shafts that you put in them. But can they be lighter? Yeah. Are they if you're one for one same model? No, they're pretty much the same. Okay. Ray Tom. You know that's the I-15s. Okay, the I-15s, and then the I-500s. I would in any case, if you're trying to hit it further, the I-15 they had what they call I-man and G-man and I-golfer or something like that back in that day. And the I believe, was their players. So the standard loft would probably be equivalent. But if you're looking to get more out of the club, I would go with the power loft. If that's the case, the stronger lofted ones for sure. You're going to hit it the same, or you're going to hit it further with the same amount of control. I don't see where that's bad. He did. I met his club maker, and they used to talk about, and we're talking about Jack Nicklaus, and he did counterbalance his clubs. And what they did is they put wooden dowels in the back of the shafts, and then once that glue dried, they would drill them out, and then they would pour liquid lead into the back. And it was all based on the depth of the hole, and I believe that they were all different. And according to, I don't quote me on that one, but he was telling us his techniques and what he was doing, and they weren't necessarily all the same. So, but how much he used, I don't know. The dude was so strong, it wasn't even funny. I mean, they don't talk about that kind of stuff back in that day just because it wasn't important. But that guy was strong, and if you look at the way he hit. There, with the equipment he was hitting, he was bombing 300 yarders back in the day. So just imagine how hard he had to swing to make that happen. But yeah, he did. He did do it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's not still doing it even at his advanced age, just with lighter clubs and maybe a lighter weight. So that's that one. All right, with 2 minutes left to go, guys. So I've got, we were able to do a test on the Mizuno driver, the ST200, and I was able to do the test with some of these other guys with some Mizunos, and I have to tell you, it's a very pleasing driver, right? It's not kicking mine out of the bag by any shape of the imagination, but it could be a contest to be sure, and it's kind of a twofer, so you want to watch for this one. It's a twofer in that I changed shafts, and we were looking at, I was hitting a counterbalance shaft, and I was really getting it out there for me, but there was one parameter that I just wanted to lower down, and I changed a shaft that's supposedly a low spin shaft, and did it do it? There's the trick. And then what was the result of it doing it? All right. And so that'll be in the next video, and that's going to come out either tomorrow or the next day, but it's on Mizuno and what shafts can do for you. So that's where we want to go. All right. So, guys, again, what we had this time around: Scotland, England, Australia, Canada, the U.S. Holy smokes, man! And you know, just I think it's wonderful that you guys are getting on in order to be able to ask these particular questions, and please keep them coming, and we'll always be there to answer them. So again, apparently we're not getting in the way of too much in the way of league night. We're not getting in the way of league night, and we'll come away with some more facts. Maybe I can get some more information on that Wilson driver and some other stuff happening in the industry. So as always, guys, let's see your scores. Go low.